Hello there. Today we talk CSS. You've probably seen in my video some weird classes name here and there. They all come from something I wrote, which is called css.gold. You can visit it at the address css.gold, it is live. As you can see, it's a modular style sheet based on the golden ratio and it's quite complicated, but don't worry. I've got a nicer template because I recently rewrote it. So I want to talk to you about the CSS I use in all my code. Sort of my boilerplate. What's in Gold CSS? The most useful little CSS ever. Just slap that thing and run. You see here that I recommend importing it from a layer, this is a good CSS practice, so when you inspect your stuff you know what comes from where. First we have a CSS reset, which I think is very important. There are dozens of CSS resets out there. I tried to write my own with the stuff I understood and wanted, with no foot guns, and using the latest modern stuff. We have our first class name, Gold Center. Finally we can center a div, so I just slap GC on a div and the contents inside it will be centered. As you see, we have Gold Stretch, fill the available space. So you see that if I slap GS on something, its children will take as much space as possible. Very useful for icons, images, stuff like that. We have Gold Stack, which can stack items on top of each other. We have JZ, but you see that it is combined with GC. And we have two divs stacked, one on the other. Very useful to stack icons, loading spinners, stuff like that. You can slap JZ and all the stuff will be on top of each other. Then you use the Z index to choose the order in which they are displayed. Very useful stuff. We have Gold Width, which is a weird class at first. It takes 62% of the screen size except on mobile. This definition is not exactly true, but we can see here, for example, that this div is taking 62% of the main space unless the main space is too small. Try to pause the video and see where I use that. Yes, of course, the white middle column here is using this. It is really useful on mobile, so this white thing will take 62% of the screen size, except if the screen size is too small. So very useful to have a display where you have mainly information in the center and you don't have to mess with the padding and stuff afterwards. Alright. We then have my favorites, the gold grids. Sometimes you want to have a small stuff and a big stuff. When you have two gold grids to do that, GG01 and GG10. So there's a typo here, but you understand, 1 is the big space, 0 is the small space. And what's nice about them is that they rotate on mobile, so you see here they are horizontally stacked, and if I display on mobile, you get a vertical stack. It's not on mobile especially, it's on anything that has a container. So we have one more utility class for this, which is called GQ. Q is for container. It's the CSS way of container. I mean, don't ask why. Just slap GQ on something and it will make it a container. A container in CSS is something which other elements can refer to and ask for its width, its height and change its style based on that. So it's our one element referred to one another. Now the fun part. Why gold? Because it is a modular design based on the golden ratio. We saw it at the beginning of the video. So how do we do that? First, we define a variable, m, which is equal to 1 rem, which means 1 unit of the display size. Let's say it like that. It's the font size of the current display. Then we define L, which is 62% bigger than M. Actually, we are trying to calculate it really precisely, so it's 61.8% bigger. So the golden ratio is more or less 62%. Then XL, which is 62% bigger. I guess we have XXL, 62% bigger. And in the other way, we have S, XS, XXS, and stuff like that. So this has three main benefits. If you change var m, everything changes. By increment it, you see everything incrementing in a smooth fashion, because everything is derived from one variable. You can reuse it anywhere in your CSS. If you want to have a grid and a modular space, you can use var m inside it, and it's damn easy to understand. I mean, just close size. If you see div gold padding equal var xl, you understand there is a fat padding on this thing. Freebies. We mostly do padding, margin, and that kind of stuff. So you have some free utility classes to do that. JP for padding, JM for margin, JT for text, and then you choose your value, and voila. If you take a look at this, div class, so in the class in a tailwind fashion, we have JP S, so small padding, GM XL, a fat margin, JT XXL, a very fat text. So yeah, you have text utilities because all of the text sizes have been reset by the CSS reset. We'll see that in a minute. A nice utility for full screen, which uses dynamic viewport units, which is, I found, the best way to develop apps that look good on mobile. And you can combine this with JZ for nice overlays. So if you want to make an overlay, you add a div, you make it full screen with FS, you make sure that it's inside the JZ, and you have a full screen overlay anytime you want. You combine it with JC so that maybe the card that you want to show is in the center, stuff like that. We have the classic view of how every common HTML elements look like. We have the text input. You see that the font is the same. We have the password working as you wish. We have checkboxes and radio, and here you see that these elements are the same color as the text, not the usual blue HTML stuff that you're used to. We have selections, short and long, and you see that they match the length of the value inside it. A range with the good value, number, color, date, file, text area with the right font, progress, button, submit, reset. And that's it. Okay. This project is open source, obviously. I want everybody to use it, so feel free to go to the GitHub and check, grab it, slap it, and use it. That sounded like a Daft Punk song, but here it is. It's just this CSS file, you import it and you use it. I want to show you how I wrote it, so now it's the part where we dive into the code. Here is the code behind Gold CSS. You see that it is not very long, 170 lines. I didn't try to golf it or anything, doesn't need to. And the first thing is that we are going to group them by layers, and it doesn't matter if you import it in a layer afterwards. You will see that, for example, this property comes from gold.reset. You can have layers inside your layers, and you should have layers inside your layers if you want your CSS to be nice and easy. The last layer applies its rule, overrides the precedent one, so you can safely import gold, and afterwards you do your modification and you are sure that it won't mess with anything. Alright, the reset, the obvious and very classic box sizing, border box, margin, padding. You've seen that in every CSS reset ever. It just means we size content based on the box they are in, and we strip the predefined margin and padding that they had. Text wrap pretty, because why not, and text box trim equals trim both. This one may be controversial, but I think that it adds a lot in the layouts that you can do. You can do really cool stuff if you have really a text box, so the box around the text that is really close to the letters. So this way you can stack them, you can have lots more juice in your website. We reset the fonts of everything. So H1 will be the same size as a font paragraph, which is why you have some utilities like JT, XXL to make it bigger again in the right modular ratio. But sometimes you want your H1 to be like not too big, but H1s are really important for your SEO and the way the robots parse your website. So I don't define that in the reset level. I just no foot guns, every text looks the same, and then you choose. A color inherit to strip the blue color of the links. Cursor pointer on buttons. Why isn't it? I mean, most 99% of the time you're gonna like having a button on your a pointer on your buttons. Then we reset the font, color, and letter spacing they use, and we remove their backgrounds. You style your buttons however you want. They are really an important part of your website anyway. This accent color is how we make sure that checkbox stuff, for example, has the same color as the current font. Select field sizing equals content, so this is how we did this is well known as well. There is no reinventing the wheel here. This is how you have selects that adapt to their content. We remove the dots on the HTML list. They can be really useful, but the dots are a bit outdated, so we just strip them and remove them, and you can add whatever you want afterwards. The HR, we want to see it, so every line that you see here is an HR. They are 1 pixel tall. You can modify them later, but most importantly, you want to see them, and this stuff make it so. Table, this is the classic reset for tables, because default tables in HTML are horrible. SVG, paint order, straw field, just looks better when you are writing SVG. So, nice freebie. And all these elements have display inline because of reasons, but nowadays you would always want to have them with a block display to position them how you want. This was the reset layer. the default is very simple. I've already explained to you. We calculate the golden ratio with CSS. So we use the calc function for this. So 1 plus square root of 5, and you take the half of that. We take m is 1, and then we can have calc and we can have powers in CSS. So no problem at that, and we define xxs, xs, s. So power minus 3 means divided by 5, divided by 5, divided by 5. Really some simple stuff, and then we assign that to the default of the HTML. So the line height is, maybe it should be m, so there's no, yeah, it should be m. People usually like to have big line heights for their websites, but I mean, it's up to them. This is a reset and I shouldn't take this decision. The layouts now. So the most common way nowadays to center something is to make the parent a grid. It's really straightforward. What I used in the first versions of Gold CSS was display grid, and then I would write place items center and justify items center. This I found is less robust than saying, okay, JC means that it's gonna be a grid, you deal with it however you want, but I want everything inside that grid, and right after it, to place itself in the center of the grid. I found that it's way more robust, and in very small details, it was better to write it like that. Like, okay, this class means that its children have property instead of constraining the way it works. And it's easier afterwards to give more behavior to the class because they just pass behavior to their children. This is why I also wrote the rest of the layouts like this. So for example, JZ, to stack stuff on top of each other, you declare a grid, and then you say everything inside it, take the grid area 1 horizontal, 1 vertical. So the grid is going to be a 1 by 1 square, and they all occupy this one, and this way they can overlay each other. They're all placed on the same element. And you see that it allows to use like really different properties. Maybe it's going to be more clearer in JS. So JS, yeah, you see, it used to be display grid, align content stretch, place item stretch, and you couldn't go much further. But there is a justify self property stretch that you can use for this. And you see place item stretch, and so when you put JC and JS, you have place item center, place item stretch. Those two things were kind of on each other, fighting for the same space. But with this approach, it's giving me better results. So this is what I'm using now. Declaring a container, so this is the standard way to declare a container for JQ. And for the golden grids, so it's really easy, you just declare columns like this. So one FR, so one fraction of the remaining space, and 62% more fraction of the remaining space, and you put everything in the same row. And whenever the container, so important to know, there is a magic number here, which is like 600 pixels. You have to define a magic breakpoint somewhere. Most of the time people won't have a fluid display, they will either be on mobile or desktop, and I don't even care about tablets anymore. I optimize for a mobile view, a desktop view, and this breakpoint is right in the middle, so it's perfect. And whenever the container is too small, you switch to a grid template rows to stack them vertically, and then grid template columns. This is one way to do it, so you don't have to put the container on the body or the main element. You can put on whatever you want anyway. You'll have this nice display, which is like really useful to make cards or stuff like this. Like you can, for your hero, you can put an image in big and the text in small, or for a shop, you can put the photo in big and the price in small, however you want, and they will rotate on mobile, and they're really good. This is for prototyping. You use it for prototyping, you use it because you know there won't be any foot guns, you can easily center stuff, make some quick and dirty layouts, and then you write your own CSS. Alright, GG10, you guessed it, instead of 1 and 162, we have 162 and 1. And for the utilities, full screen is really boring, except that we are using dynamic viewport inline and dynamic viewport block. So dynamic viewport is really good on mobile because it takes into account the search bar, for example, that or the application bar, the application navigation that can occur. GW, I'm using the container size, so if the container of this stuff is too small, is big enough, mid-width is big enough, then you take 62% of the inline size of the container. I don't even have to comment on this, you can see that padding GPXS, padding VARIXS. Really easy. There's no XXS, maybe I should add that. Yeah, definitely should add that, XXS to XXL. And XXS, alright. That's all there is to it. So this is really useful, I just slap that in every project I start, because I know I can center stuff, I can make containers on the fly, try to test some things, see how some stuff reacts when it is stretched, and most importantly stack items on top of each other, because with CSS this is how you create nice displays. You use a lot of stacked items and then you play with properties like the mix blend mode, the background blend mode, stuff like that. Blend mode, you get a lot of nice colors, but this is just color on color, but yeah, whatever. You got a lot of filters, stuff like that. Now, I first started to make it like this because you can see the kind of golden spiral inside the website. I found it really cool. There were, you see, dark and white mode. There are also ways to change the color in white or dark. You have the fee number here. You have buttons to make it bigger or smaller, still on the modular aspect of the thing. And if you click on this, you have a pure CSS manifesto, but I am not going to show it in this video. If you are interested, go to the website. It is like a fun Easter egg. If you click on this, and you understand how I made this, so you can go and check the code. But basically, you have this thing which is like in a GG10. So this is the big stuff, and this is the small one, and then you nest them. This is the big one, this is the small one. I can show it to you. Let's It's kind of responsive. I just hide stuff when it's too small. Yeah, so you see, this is a great way. The big element and the small element, and inside the small element, a big element and a small element, and inside the small element, a big element and a small element. Yeah, change the order to make it look like a spiral. Big element, small element, you get the deal. You nest these layouts and this stuff, and yeah, it was, I guess, the coolest thing I can do with that. Finally, I want to talk about my inspirations. You have everylayout.dev, which is a really good book website about how to make basic layouts, but in the smartest way possible. It's written by a guy called Hayden, and I also recommend his site, so I will be linking it in the description because his blog is kind of cool, and the last inspiration, so yeah, the modular design comes from here. And finally, for the big principles, there is an initiative to write some standardized Gold CSS, layered CSS, about how to think of components inside your layouts, which is called Cube CSS, and it's quite a long read, but I encourage you to do it if you are interested. I will put the link in the description. Go visit css.gold if you want to see the new version. For the moment, it's living at goldcss.new because I want to keep this cool stuff. So I will put the link of this in the description. Go grab your version, and yeah, it's just a reset, GC, JZ, and GS. Just download it, if only for the reset and these three stuff, and the fact that you can have some nice free padding, margin, text utilities, which are going to scale nicely. I hope that you enjoyed this video. We are going to be back next week with more Datastar stuff. Been a while since we've done some hardcore projects with Datastar, but don't worry, I'm in the kitchen cooking nice stuff for you. I wish everyone a good day, and see ya for the next video.